There are nights when the moon feels too deliberate, too patient in its orbit, too precise in its distance. It hangs there, motionless in its perfection, almost as if placed rather than born. To most of us it is comfort, the night's quiet companion. But to others, to those who've spent lifetimes staring at seismographs, photographs, and myth, it is something else entirely. When Apollo 12's ascent stage slammed into the lunar surface in November of 1969, the seismometers left by the astronauts began to shake. And then, they kept shaking. The moon didn't simply absorb the impact, it resonated. For nearly an hour it rang like a struck bell. The vibrations didn't decay in the way they should have. Instead, they sustained, deep and hollow, as if reverberating through a vast cavity rather than through solid stone. It wasn't a one-time anomaly. Later missions produced similar results. The moon kept singing. The data confused even the mission scientists, the geophysicists, the engineers, the analysts who believed in the simplicity of rock and silence. One of them would later remark, half-jokingly, that it was as though the moon was a gigantic empty shell. The comment was never meant for conspiracy boards or whispered forums, but it spread like a seed through time. And in the years that followed, the idea of a hollow moon stopped being a joke to some. They began to notice other inconsistencies. The way the moon's density is lower than expected, the way its center of mass is slightly offset, the way its orbit is almost impossibly stable. The moon always shows us the same face, its rotation locked in a precision that feels engineered. There is something unsettling about such perfection. Nature, in all her vast chaos, rarely crafts symmetry like this. Ancient people, lacking seismographs or spectroscopy, felt this strangeness too, though they spoke of it differently. To the Sumerians, the moon was an object hung in the heavens by gods with serpentine faces. The ancient Chinese spoke of dragons that lived within its pale glow, coiling through the sky to steal the sun during eclipses. In Mesoamerica, lunar deities bore scales. Always, the moon was tied to the reptile, the watcher, the manipulator, the one who ruled from above. Modern minds tried to forget these stories, trading myth for measurement. But the patterns never left, the lunar craters, for instance. They are all shallow, even the deepest of them. Impacts that should have driven miles down into rock barely dent the surface, as though striking an armored plate beneath a thin crust of dust. The moon's crust is oddly rich in titanium, iron, and rare metals, the kind you'd expect from manufactured alloys, not simple stone. If one were to imagine, just imagine, that the moon was an artifact, then the pieces begin to fit together with uncomfortable neatness. The perfect orbit, the acoustic ringing, the metal content, the myths. It could have been built as a fortress, a transport vessel, a station for observation. And for those who follow the reptilian theory, it was all of those things, the crown of an empire that reached Earth long before recorded history. They say it still hums because something inside it still works. Some ancient machinery buried in the dark, deep beneath the Maria. Maybe it powers itself through electromagnetic resonance, cycling endlessly since before humanity lit its first fire. Maybe those old engines still listen, still record, still send their data to places we cannot see. In the end, the question isn't whether the moon is hollow. It's whether it was ever alive, and whether the silence we see above us is not silence at all, but the slow breathing of something vast and patient. If the moon truly was built, if it was placed in our orbit rather than born beside us, then someone or something had to have built it. And that leads to the oldest and strangest theory of all, that the architects were not human, not gods, but a species that has always existed in the shadows of our memory. The Reptilians, ancient, intelligent, cold-blooded engineers of both biology and metal. Long before telescopes, people felt their presence in the stories they told. In Sumer, they were the Anunnaki, beings of scaled flesh who came from above and below, mastering both heaven and earth. In Egypt, they were depicted as snake-headed divinities, watchers of the night sky. The Mayans spoke of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent who descended from the heavens and taught civilization itself. Across continents and millennia, the pattern repeats. The serpent descends, the serpent teaches, the serpent withdraws, always tied to the moon, the tides, and the passage of time. Those who follow this lunar theory say the connection is not symbolic. They say the reptilians were the original architects of the moon itself, a colossal bioship, an artificial satellite designed as both fortress and habitat. The outer shell disguised as rock, the interior a lattice of chambers and corridors where entire colonies might once have lived. According to this vision, the reptilians were not invaders. They were refugees. Their homeworld, perhaps somewhere beyond the Orion Spur, had fallen to catastrophe. They came to Earth seeking a new foundation, and so they built the moon, not only to observe the planet, but to stabilize it. Without the moon, Earth's axis would wobble chaotically, climates would shift violently, and life would have evolved along far different paths. It's as if the reptilians inserted a balancing weight into the system, not to dominate, but to preserve. If that is true, then our entire evolution, our seas, our seasons, even our minds, may have unfolded under the slow, deliberate calibration of an alien hand. The architect's descendants, if they still exist, would not live on the surface. They would dwell deep within, in the vast cavities protected by miles of stone, in artificial seas of molten metal and machine. The heat signatures we occasionally detect from the dark side, the inexplicable flashes of light seen by astronomers, the rhythmic pulses of energy recorded by orbiters. These are interpreted by believers as remnants of a forgotten civilization still humming below the surface. But perhaps the most unnerving idea is that they never left at all. According to some esoteric accounts, the reptilians seeded their presence on Earth long ago, blending their biology with our own, creating a hybrid line meant to lead humanity from within, not conquerors, but curators, shaping empires, religions, and economies while remaining tethered to the place they first called home. The moon, then, becomes more than a station. It becomes a throne, a fixed point from which the architects oversee their grand experiment. They don't need to appear. They don't need to announce themselves. Their influence radiates through tides, through fields, through the faint electromagnetic whisper that every human brain quietly receives. Modern science sees none of this. Telescopes find dust, not metal. Probes find silence, not cities. Yet the myth refuses to die because it doesn't need evidence. It survives on intuition, on the strange feeling that the moon has always been watching. Its stillness feels sentient. Its face never changes. It pulls on our oceans and on our blood, and we cannot look away. If there were architects, then their design was perfect. A sphere that appears natural, yet holds its builders within. A mirror that reflects light but conceals its source. And above all, a reminder, a white, unblinking eye in the sky, that civilization itself may be someone else's long-running experiment. Perhaps the reptilians didn't build the moon to hide. Perhaps they built it to remain close enough to observe the world they shaped, to hear the songs of the creatures they guided, to wait until the moment we're ready to understand what the moon truly is, a structure older than human thought, still quietly alive. If the moon was built, and the reptilians were its architects, then it must have a purpose beyond beauty or balance. Every machine is made to serve. Every orbit is a pattern. The moon, then, may be the most ancient machine still in operation, one that watches, listens, and quietly shapes the life below it. There are fragments of evidence scattered through history, each small enough to dismiss, yet unsettling in their accumulation. Astronomers have long reported transient lunar phenomena, brief flashes, glowing domes, or shifting lights along the rim of craters like Aristarchus and Plato. In 1963, a British team recorded a crimson glow pulsing across the moon's surface that lasted several minutes before vanishing. Others have claimed to see mists, shadows, or geometric patterns that move against logic. Science calls them outgassing events or optical illusions. But some claim they are vents, ports, or energy discharges, the exhalations of an ancient machine still running beneath the dust. If you stand beneath a clear night sky and look up long enough, it's easy to forget that the moon's light isn't its own. It's a reflection. Sunlight redirected, filtered, softened. For those who believe in the Watcher's machine, that reflection isn't passive, it's transmission. The moon absorbs energy from the sun and beams it back toward Earth in coded frequencies, subtle enough to blend with natural electromagnetic fields. Those frequencies, they say, interact with biology, regulating sleep, emotion, instinct. The lunar cycle that moves the tides and the menstrual rhythm of human beings might not be coincidence at all, but calibration. The idea is chilling in its elegance, a device that doesn't rule through violence or threat, but through rhythm and resonance. No need for armies when you can tune the behavior of an entire species through light and gravity. The reptilian overseers, if they remain, would not need to interfere directly. Their instrument plays by itself. Ancient architecture reflects this obsession with alignment, pyramids, megaliths, and temples oriented toward the moon's risings and eclipses. Civilizations long gone built their monuments as if responding to a signal only their ancestors could hear. Even now, our technology hums in sync with the same cycles: radio frequencies, satellite windows, navigation systems. The moon's orbit threads through all of it like a hidden metronome, guiding both our oceans and our machines. Inside the theory, the Watcher's machine has layers. The upper crust, the visible moon, acts as a camouflage shell, absorbing impacts, reflecting light. Beneath that lies a network of superconductive tunnels and hollow nodes, channels for electromagnetic energy that flow like arteries. Deepest of all is the core, not molten but metallic, a generator the size of a continent, still humming after millions of years. Some imagine it as an ancient reactor, powered by lunar resonance itself, converting vibration into energy. Others believe it is biological, a living engine grown rather than built, pulsing in slow time like the heartbeat of a creature dreaming in stone. Those who have listened closely, radio astronomers, ham operators, classified researchers, have reported strange signals originating from the moon. Not random static, but structured pulses, repeating intervals, faint harmonics, occasional bursts of mathematical regularity. Always dismissed, always forgotten. Yet, in quiet circles, these signals are called the Watcher's voice. And then there is the silence that follows. Perhaps the most disturbing element of the theory isn't that the moon transmits, but that it receives, that it listens. Every broadcast, every radar ping, every cellular transmission on Earth eventually glances off that gray shell. The moon is the perfect receiver, a dish larger than any built by man. Every word spoken, every frequency emitted, bouncing back toward the same unblinking eye. If it truly is a reptilian construct, then it is the ultimate surveillance device, patient, undying, and unseen. The Watcher's machine doesn't need to move, it only needs to turn. Every night it drifts above us, its circuits hidden under eons of dust, its receivers wide open, scanning a world that long ago forgot who put it there. If the moon truly functions as a machine, a watcher, a regulator, an overseer, then the question isn't just what it does, but why. For some, the answer lies not in the cold mechanics of rock and orbit, but in something far more intimate, the way humanity itself seems bound to it, not just physically, but psychologically. Every culture that has ever looked skyward has felt the moon's pull in their bones. Our languages, our calendars, our mythologies all bend around its phases. The tides of our oceans mirror the tides of our blood. The word lunatic itself came from the belief that madness waxed and waned with the lunar light, that emotion, intuition, even sanity were somehow tethered to that glowing orb. Modern science dismisses that as superstition. But what if it was observation, not imagination? What if human behavior truly oscillates because the machine above us makes it oscillate? The reptilian theory doesn't picture domination in the way we think of it, not as armies or decrees, but as influence. A civilization advanced enough to manipulate biology could craft subtler tools, electromagnetic fields, hormonal triggers, gravitational harmonics. The Watcher's machine could exert control simply by tuning the rhythms of the planet, by making life respond in predictable patterns. A gentle tug on the tides of emotion, a whisper to the instincts of a species, repeated over eons until the influence becomes indistinguishable from nature itself. Perhaps that is the great illusion, that what we call human nature may not be natural at all. The moon pulls on everything, not only the seas, but the chemistry of the brain, the magnetism of cells, the delicate balance between aggression and empathy. If one could modulate those forces even slightly, one could shepherd an entire civilization's temperament. Wars might bloom under certain alignments, peace under others. Faith, fear, and imagination could be guided like weather. It's a thought both terrifying and oddly comforting, that humanity's story might have been orchestrated rather than accidental. That every empire, every enlightenment, every collapse was part of a longer experiment unfolding under silver light. For millennia, we've carved our stories into stone, painted them into cave walls, etched them into silicon. All the while, the moon has hovered above, its face unchanged, quietly collecting data. Some researchers point to patterns too consistent to ignore: spikes in collective behavior around lunar events, technological revolutions following major eclipses, bursts of creativity synchronized with cycles of heightened electromagnetic activity. Coincidence or calibration? And then there are the myths that seem to carry coded memory, stories of beings descending from the moon to guide humanity, not angels, not gods, but those who came from the light. Tales of abductions, visitations, and whispered instructions, all connected to phases of the moon. In older texts, the serpent is not evil, it is knowledge itself. Perhaps that's how the reptilians saw their work, not as enslavement, but cultivation. Humanity as a seed they planted, watched, and tended from their silent station above. Modern culture, with its screens and satellites, has only deepened the relationship. We photograph the moon endlessly, map its surface, measure its pull. Yet, the more we learn, the stranger it becomes. We can predict its movement with mathematical perfection, yet we cannot explain the uncanny stability of its orbit, or why it aligns so precisely with the sun to produce total eclipses that look designed for spectacle, moments when the watcher hides behind the very light it redirects. And in those brief minutes of darkness, as the world holds its breath, something in us stirs, an ancient recognition, a forgotten awareness that we are being looked at. The animals fall silent, the air stills, and for a fleeting moment Earth feels observed. If the moon is indeed a reptilian construct, then perhaps its role has shifted over time. The architects might be gone, their technology now self-sustaining, still monitoring, still correcting, still influencing in ways we cannot measure. Maybe it no longer needs its makers. Maybe we are the continuation of their design, the part of the experiment that learned to look back. When humanity reached the moon, we believed we were exploring it, but maybe it was opening the door to see how far we had come. And maybe, as we left our footprints in the dust, the watchers simply watched, patient, ancient, unblinking, as their creation looked up from Earth and whispered, "We are alone," never realizing the machine above had heard every word. There are nights when the moon seems too close. It hangs low and swollen, luminous enough to reveal every ridge and shadow across its scarred face. You can trace the outlines of craters and mountains, each one etched into memory by centuries of gazing. But look too long and something shifts. The patterns begin to resemble eyes. The shadows take form. The comfort of that gentle light becomes something else, the feeling of being seen. For decades, observers have reported anomalies that defy the moon's silence, flashes that pulse without pattern, beams of light emerging from darkened craters, even motion, shadows crossing the surface where no atmosphere exists to create them. The most persistent accounts come from astronomers watching the region of Aristarchus, a crater so bright it seems to glow from within. There, witnesses have seen what they describe as mechanical gleams, reflections that move against the rotation of the moon, as though something beneath the regolith stirs and adjusts. In the language of myth, these lights are called the eyes of the watchers. To believers, they mark the entrances to the reptilian interior, portals sealed for millennia, reopening just enough to recalibrate the ancient machine within. They say the reptilians no longer walk freely on the moon's surface. They have retreated deep into the chambers where the atmosphere can be maintained, where they can survive in the solitude of their creation. There they wait, sustained by the same power source that hums beneath the crust. Some claim that our telescopes have already captured proof. Images of sharp-angled structures that look less like geological accidents and more like architecture, towers, domes, even vast hexagonal patterns that shimmer faintly in certain light. The official explanations are always the same: pareidolia, compression artifacts, tricks of contrast. But those who have spent their lives studying the anomalies speak differently. They describe symmetry too deliberate to be natural. Shadows that move between frames, objects that vanish from subsequent images, as if deliberately erased. The idea grows more chilling when viewed through time. Ancient cultures across the world all shared a fascination, or perhaps an awareness, of the moon's watchers. The Dogon tribe of Mali spoke of beings from a hidden companion to the moon. Early Chinese astronomers noted cold fires on its surface. In the 1800s, a London newspaper published the infamous Great Moon Hoax, a series of reports describing bat-winged humanoids and massive crystal towers. It was presented as fiction, but many who read it felt a deeper resonance, as though it had struck a nerve already waiting to be touched. The reptilian theory suggests that such stories are not coincidence, but memory, fragments resurfacing through time, echoes of an ancient truth. The watchers, they say, have never left. Their technology simply became invisible, their presence masked beneath our disbelief. And maybe disbelief is the final layer of camouflage. Modern probes have flown past the moon hundreds of times, yet the anomalies persist. Flashes seen by amateurs aren't found in official data sets. Radio signals picked up by civilian astronomers fade when larger observatories attempt to confirm them. Images of strange structures are removed, pixelated, or conveniently shadowed in later versions. Whether this is bureaucracy or concealment hardly matters. The effect is the same: the mystery endures. Those who believe in the reptilian origin of the moon often say the watchers are not hostile, only patient. They are waiting for something specific, a frequency, a level of intelligence, or perhaps a signal from their own kind. Some even speculate that humanity itself is that signal, that we, as a species, are the broadcast they have been monitoring. Our culture, our wars, our transmissions, all feeding into the same endless data stream. The moon, in that sense, isn't watching us out of malice, but out of purpose. It was designed to record, to learn, to evolve. And maybe in the silence of its craters, something has begun to respond, There are radio bursts detected from near the moon that don't match any known source, short, repeating, structured. There are unexplained heat blooms, infrared signatures rising briefly in regions that should be frozen. Perhaps these are malfunctions, or perhaps they are awakenings. When humanity looks up and sees that soft silver light, we rarely think of it as ancient technology. But if this theory is true, if the Reptilian station still hums beneath that cold surface, then the moon is the greatest monument in existence. A living relic, orbiting in plain sight, its creator's legacy disguised as nature. In the end, the watchers might not need to reveal themselves. They only need to keep watching, and so the moon turns, endlessly, serenely, a hollow eye in the dark, its craters filled with secrets, its silence louder than any signal. It does not sleep. It does not age. It waits.